Welcome to BizTips with Jenny Rice, bringing you insights from real entrepreneurs. No fluff, just raw, practical strategies from those who've been in the trenches. Whether you're launching, scaling, or pivoting, this podcast is your backstage pass to lessons, successes, and game-changing tips. Get ready to learn, take action, and level up. Let's dive in with our next guest.
Hi, this is Jenny Rice with BizTips podcast. I'm so very excited about our guest today. We have Karen Amster Young, who is a seasoned marketing and communication professional. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be on.
Yeah, I know you wear lots of hats and do many different things. So why don't you share a little bit more about your background?
It's so funny. I was thinking about, I think I was doing public relations and communications before I even really knew what it was called. I was always drawn to how do you attract people to an event? How do you attract people or draw people into a new brand? But I was doing this, let's say, even in high school and college, without knowing. I knew that it made me so excited to have a successful campaign, but I didn't quite know the full art of communications at that time. Of course, I was studying it, but it was just, I love the whole chase. And how do you engage consumers? And I've continued my whole career working on that for top brands, hospitality clients, lifestyle clients. And then I went on after college. I started my PR career at Ketchum Public Relations, which is one of the leading PR agencies in the world. And I was honored to be there. They really set the foundation for me. And some of my mentors and colleagues still work there. It's one of these places that people stay a long time. But they showed me really the science of public relations and communications, because many people hear the word public relations, which I don't even like that word anymore. It's evolved into so much more, brand partnerships and influencers and everything else, which I hopefully will touch upon. But there is a science and an art and a science to a good public relations, marketing, communications plan. People think of PR people as, red carpet press people, and it's not like that.
Right.
Or it could be, but certainly not in the world that I'm in. And then over the years, I'm also a contributing writer or journalist for many local and national publications. I wrote a book somewhere in there about getting unstuck, which has nothing to do with my career, which was a lot of fun. A friend and I in our 40s felt like we weren't doing the things that we want to do because there's never enough time. So we had fun for 52 weeks trying something new. Each week, it could be very small, like eating more fruit instead of carbs, but trying to somehow get unstuck. And then in the last 5 years, I've become passionate, I think I always was, about art. And I not only cover artists for magazines, but started dabbling in it myself. So somehow, I think it's all very entrepreneurial things. And I think that's what entrepreneurs have in common is they have a lot of interest and they learn not to get too defeated. Everybody gets defeated sometimes. But if you get a no, you keep going. And if you have a failure, you keep going.
And you learn from it.
And you learn from it. If you really have to fail to get to the next level sometimes.
Absolutely. You have to learn by your mistakes, learn by this didn't work, or learn by I don't like this. And then, shift and move on. And it takes, to be an entrepreneur, it takes that stoicism to say, I'm going to keep on going, right?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes no's just make me want to try harder. And other people, that's why there are people like, I can never do what some of my friends do. I would be terrible at it. And they sometimes can't believe that you have to have thick skin. Like they wouldn't want to be in any kind of sales or marketing because they do feel a little defeated and they don't have that kind of personality. Like I said, they do so many other things that I wouldn't be able to do either. But I think that is a common trait among entrepreneurs and business owners is it may be hard and you can be disappointed and you can have a pity party for a day if you, let's say, lose an account against other competitors or you get your 10th no from something you're trying to do. But you kind of just inspires you, hopefully, after that 24 hours to try even more,
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's something we all have in common if you've had failures and successes as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I firmly believe that being an entrepreneur is being able to get up when you're down, keep on going, and don't give up. You have to have a big why. Why am I
Yeah.
doing this? What's the impact I'm having? What difference am I making? So that you say, I know what I'm doing provides value and meaning. So I've got to continue doing it, even if sometimes there's roadblocks and hiccups, and we learn from them, and it doesn't make us stronger, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And people, there's that old expression, an overnight success. And it's so not true. I think people know that. I mean, even my fun book took 3 years after we had the idea to really bring it to life. Um, sometimes people don't understand that. They think they have a wonderful idea and there are a million great ideas, but it takes years sometimes. I mean, there are the exceptions, of course. It takes years to sometimes reach those milestones, and you have to really be driven to want that. I kind of feel there are so many things that my general rule is if I can get something out of my head for at least 72 hours to a couple of weeks, then I'm going to pursue it in some way. Doesn't mean I'm going to succeed, but usually if it sticks in my mind and I can't stop thinking about it, whether it's book idea or um, a new idea for a client, you should sit back a little and pause and say, and then ask yourself again, maybe a few days later, is it still in your head? And if it is, then it's probably worth pursuing so that
Yeah.
you not only to fulfill what you want maybe in life, but even to do great work for your clients.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
you
love
have to,
how you consider that and how you make it a priority if it's something that keeps coming up and it keeps calling you. You're listening to your intuition, right? And
yes,
that
yes,
knowingness that this is what I need to pursue. What I love about what you do too is the creative spirit of it. You talked about painting, you talked about writing, you talked about marketing. Those are all creative outlets too, where you really get to express yourself and
yeah, that's
tap into
true.
that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds during the pandemic when I couldn't visit my mom who wasn't well and everybody had so many stresses. I mean, it was a horrible time. My livelihood a lot is writing, and I was having trouble even stringing one sentence together. So what was interesting about painting is it became therapeutic. Obviously, not many words needed. I do have some words on my paintings though. Um, but that was an outlet I needed to kind of try to shut out a little bit, because everybody was really, I'm talking about the real 9 months of the pandemic, it was a horrible time. You couldn't be with loved ones, and couldn't check in on elderly people so I think that even though, yes, it is creative as well, that came from a place of almost therapy need, like it was therapeutic need. But I am still doing it and I love it. So,
That's great. I dabble in photography and I dabble in painting too, and it's sort of a Zen place for me where I
right.
can tune out everything and just be with myself and just channel that creative energy, which is so amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to talk art one day offline.
Yes, yes. I actually collect art too, so of
Oh,
ethnic
wow.
art from different countries, so it's pretty cool.
I
Yeah.
love black and white photography. I'm very drawn to that. So, um, but the other thing I think is important to touch upon is work-life balance. I have a tendency to kind of dive into work sometimes at the expense of kind of almost avoiding some other things. I'm just being honest about that. It's coming from a genuine driven place, but it's like, okay, I'm going to put off that tough appointment I need to go to and just get caught up in work. And that's not great either. The world has changed now. So you could see I'm in my home office. When I was, developing my career, you had to be in the office 5 days a week. It was even more difficult to have work-life balance. And now it's a little easier. I think most people are working at least one day a week at home, or you can really work from anywhere. I mean, which is wonderful. So I try not to have as many excuses anymore, whether it's, pushing yourself to do something that is out of your comfort zone or whatever it may be. I think that every generation's a little different. I think my daughter, who's 24, even though she works so hard, really makes it a point to make sure she's getting in her healthy time and her exercise. And, my generation was a little bit different.
Mhm.
So no excuses anymore. But I love that freedom too. I've always kind of been an independent worker, even though I think interacting with colleagues is critical as you're coming up the ranks. But as a business owner, you have to be self-driven because it's only you at the beginning, and then hopefully you have employees. I did build my agency after leaving Ketchum for over a decade. And it was my first baby before my daughter. For over, yeah, about 11, 12 years. And then I merged with another agency. And then I did take a break a little bit for a lot of reasons, but it was almost like and I felt like an empty nester after the business was gone, and now I still have my shingle up, and I also work with a wonderful small boutique lifestyle agency, Sabrina Levine Public Relations, well, Communications. We used to call it Public Relations, Sabrina Levine Communications, and I do a lot of strategic advisory work for her and as needed her clients and new business development as well. So I have the benefit of working with a boutique agency as well as independently with my own work. If a client just needs one senior individual instead of the resources and the services of a agency.
That's great.
Yeah, so that I wanted to mention that. And just follow, what you want. I think too many people feel like once they come out of college and they go to law school or something, they're stuck in that career. I have a girlfriend who became an intern at age 45. She had to save money, of course, for a long time and knew that it was a paid internship, but it was still starting at the bottom when she made a big career switch after, I forgot when it was, 2008, 2009, when Wall Street and stuff crumbled at one time. And she wasn't her passion anyway. And so she was out, she pivoted into like nonprofit, but development, which is securing funds from major donors for an important cause. And it took her a while, and then she went all the way to the top. So she switched careers at 45. And you could switch careers at any time because if you're going to be doing it, you might as well do something that you feel very connected to.
Absolutely. I really believe that entrepreneurs, most of them anyway, are there because of their passion, because they want to make a difference. They want to make an impact. And I find a lot of people come on this podcast are those people. It's because I have a calling. I have a service, a gift to give to the world that I really need to do this.
Yeah.
And, my skills are so much so that I want to make that impact.
And
And
I
I think,
started giving back. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
yeah,
I
go ahead.
started also after when I was able to, I like to, I've been on many committees and giving my marketing and communications advice to nonprofits when time and bills allow. And that's a good feeling also because you're using your training and your expertise, to give back to a cause that's very important to you.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me a little bit more about you as an entrepreneur, because it sounds like you've done so many different things and I guess brought in all your skill set, your knowledge into one. Tell me a little bit some challenges you've had as an entrepreneur and how'd you overcome them?
I just remember feeling scared at times. I had to move from my first office space, and I remember looking at new space, and it was like over my budget and scary because there was going to be some empty desks. And I'll never forget my father, who's not with me anymore, unfortunately, but he said, when there's space, you'll fill it, and something to that effect. And it kind of does drive you to fill it because if you have that rent bill coming in and it's more, it kind of says, okay, well, I want two more clients because then I can have two more employees sitting at that desk. Now that was a challenge, but there's also times where you learn that you have to change a certain way of doing things. One of my early clients, he was so important to me. He asked me to, I was only like 28, and he asked me to speak in front of this huge crowd. And I think I was confident that I could speak, but I was using technology tools, which at the time I thought were up, good, but he hated it. Like I fell on my ass during, excuse my language, in that presentation because the the graphics weren't up to snuff with what he wanted. And so obviously there was a lack of communication somewhere. I was still very young. He got over it. He remained a client for many years, but there's challenges. And sometimes you have to say, I'm sorry, I did something wrong. I mean, we're all human. And And I think the importance for entrepreneurs, we're driven and we want to give back and we want to share. We love what we do, but everyone messes up sometimes. So I think the most important thing is to own it when you mess up and, try to make up for it and always say you're sorry. And that it's client service business at the end of the day. And they learn to listen to you. I mean, it's almost like an attorney or anybody else who's giving advice, how to work with shareholders, stakeholders, investors. It's not just the press that we're dealing with. We're dealing with all the constituents that they deal with. In some cases, it can be their clients, how to communicate, internal communications, external communications. So it's all exciting, but sometimes you have to adjust how you do things. You have to say, I didn't know something. And it's hard for some entrepreneurs. It's almost contradictory to a lot of times entrepreneurs are confident people. And so intuitively, they have a hard time, especially younger ones, I've learned over the years, but younger entrepreneurs coming up, like they think they can't do something wrong. Of course you can, and you're going to be more successful when you admit that.
Yeah, and learn by your mistakes and learn by your failures, like you said
Right.
earlier, right?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
move on and
Absolutely.
be better from it.
You
So
just
that,
try to do the best work you can. And
yeah,
everybody has bad days. I mean, some days you just don't want to work and you need to go take a walk in the park and try to take a day off when you need to, or a week off. I mean, burnout is a really big thing. Um, and it's happening more and more actually, especially with women and guys in their 20s and 30s, even though they have more flexibility with where they work. There's this 24/7 expectation. And we used to be able to have many more boundaries as I was coming up. Like, okay, you can't reach me. Maybe I'm out to dinner. Like, okay, and
right.
now there is that pressure of this.
Being available all the time. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's got its advantages that we're all connected, and it's got its major disadvantages. So you really, as an entrepreneur, I think, have to set up those boundaries. It's very important. You can't be available all the time, in most industries. There are certain industries you're expected to be, but certainly in communications and most industries, you do not. You need to establish those.
Yeah. You need the
Those
boundaries. You
lines.
need balance. Like you said, you talked about
Yes,
your book and things like that, your expressive part. So all
right.
really good insights into being an entrepreneur, being successful and still maintaining yourself and who you are and taking care of yourself, right? You don't want that burnout, right?
Absolutely.
Very
Mentally
true.
too. I mean, I've seen it. And I think it was Ariana Huffington who wrote a whole, when she left Huffington Post, I might be saying this slightly wrong, but she wrote a whole book about burnout and why she left. And, she's continued to be very successful, but, it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So really good insight, really good suggestion. So as we end the podcast, do you have any final tips for other entrepreneurs? Because you have such a varied background in what you've done.
Just book a vacation when you get a chance. No,
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Um, follow, like, it's so cliche, but try to do what you love. And even if when you're at a job that isn't exactly what you love, there are certain skills you could take with. I mean, my first job before Ketchum, I was in Citibank and was like, I was in the communications department, and my family still laughs about this to this day. And it was, I thought it was communications. I only think of communications as I explained already. It was actually like, it was like the early ages of digital communication. I was like, I really didn't even know what department I was in. And I said, okay, how can I really not gotten this right? This is so weird. I thought I was going to be having more interaction with employees and things like that. But I ended up looking back at that and I said, wow, I would never have known these, whatever it is, X, Y, and Z skills that I brought into my career, my career that I wanted, had I not just learn the ropes of how to interact with colleagues, how to do presentations, and certain skills that ended up being important even in a very unrelated industry, which was I quickly pivoted after that job. So
Yeah.
kind of take the good with the bad.
Yeah. All great insights. And again, I love your holistic approach and how it's so important to follow your heart, your dream, but also to take care of yourself too and not have that burnout and, pick yourself up when you are down. Go for that walk, go for that vacation, which is so true. And so many entrepreneurs are like, go, 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 and they don't stop to smell the roses, right?
Yeah, it's still challenging for me. And but you do need to carve out that time. And I guess I'm trying to tell anybody who's from a different generation, they should do that. And they'll probably be more successful
Yeah, for
that
sure.
way. And you're going to listen, sometimes you can't stop working because, everyone has obligations, financial obligations. So, that's the challenge, even if you really want that balance, when and how could you do it? And just try to make the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Karen, it's been great having you as a guest. I've learned something, so
I'm
thank you for
honored that
that.
I've been on. Excuse me?
Yeah, I said I've learned something, so thank you. I've been
No,
inspired.
thank
So
you. And
yeah,
let's have that call about art and photography soon.
yes, absolutely.
All right.
So this is
Thanks.
Jenny Rice with BizTips Podcast with my very special guest today, Karen Amster Young. Thank you again, Karen.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of BizTips. For more insights, join us online. We share exclusive tips, resources, and strategies to help you grow and scale your business. Until next time, keep building, innovating, and making an impact.